I want to read some of the most memorable words from the Bible. These are God's words, and they are words that bring encouragement and support and strength and hope in the face of the death of a loved one. Jesus said, "I am the resurrection and the life. Whoever believes in me, even though they die like everyone else, they shall live again. They receive eternal life through believing in me, and they shall never perish." And from the Old Testament, "The eternal God is our refuge, and his eternal arms are your support." And St. Paul, "I am persuaded that neither death nor life, nor angels, nor other spiritual rulers or powers, neither the present or the future, neither height nor depth, or anything else in the whole of creation will be able to separate us from the love of God in Christ Jesus our Lord." We brought nothing into this world, and it is certain we can carry nothing out. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Shall we bow our heads now as we pray? Our gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you that you always hear our prayers when we turn in sincerity to you. May we each in this building today be aware of the reality of your comforting presence with us today in the sadness of our loss. And we ask that you will draw alongside us with your encouragement and support. Strengthen and deepen our trust in you, the living God. And may the solid hope of the Christian faith be a very real support for each one of us, not just today, but in all the days that lie ahead. And we pray this in the name of our risen, living Lord Jesus Christ. Amen. You'll notice on your order of service that we have two Bible readings now. First from Psalm 90, that's going to be read by the Reverend Ian Ballantyne, one of the clergy in the parish here. And then John 14 is going to be read by Bishop Anthony Farquhar. Bishop Tony is a long-time friend of Harry and the family. So our two Bible readings.
Some verses from Psalm 90. O Lord, you have always been our home. Before you created the hills or brought the world into being, you were eternally God and will be God forever. You tell man to return to what he was. You change him back to dust. 1,000 years to you are like one day. They are like yesterday, already gone, like a short hour in the night. You carry us away like a flood. We last no longer than a dream. We are like plants that sprout in the morning, that grow and burst into bloom, then dry up and die in the evening. 70 years is all we have, 80 years if we're strong. Yet all they bring us is trouble and sorrow. Life is soon over, and we are gone. Teach us, O Lord, how short life is, so that we may live wisely and well.
Our New Testament reading is from John's Gospel, chapter 14. Do not be worried and upset, Jesus told them. Trust in God and trust also in me. There are many rooms in my Father's house, and I am going to prepare a place for you. I would not tell you this if it were not so. And after I go and prepare a place for you, I will come back and take you to be with me, so that you will be with me where I am. You know the way that leads to the place where I am going." Thomas said to him, "Lord, we do not know where you're going, so how can we know the way to get there?" Jesus answered him, "I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. Peace I leave with you. My own peace I give to you. I do not give as the world gives. Do not be worried and upset. Do not be afraid." The Gospel of the Lord.
We're going to have two eulogies now from those who knew Harry very well. First of all, Stephen Watson, well known to us as the BBC Northern Ireland sports commentator, presenter, and then Liam Beckett, former manager of the Northern Ireland football team. So I'll ask them, Stephen and Liam, to come up and to deliver their eulogies.
Thank you very much. Harry was a great stickler for timekeeping, so I know that he'll be thrilled that everyone was here on time today. He was also a great stickler for attention to detail, so I hope that what I'm about to say is accurate and factual and does his remarkable life justice. Harry Gregg was born on the 27th of October 1932 in Tobermoor. He was the first of 6 children. And Harry always admired the courage and resilience of his younger brother Billy, who suffered with polio and lost the use of his legs. Harry was so proud that Billy was able to set up his own business later in life. Harry and the family then moved to Windsor Avenue in Coleraine, and from the moment he was old enough to walk, football was Harry's passion. Every spare moment in those early years were spent kicking football in Victoria Park in the summer, and in the winter it was street football with goalposts on the gable end walls. Harry's idol was Glasgow Celtic goalkeeper Johnny Thompson, probably one of the reasons Harry wanted a career between the sticks. Now, Harry in his youth purposely flunked an exam so that he didn't have to go to grammar school. He wanted to concentrate on football, so he wanted to go to the Tech, whereas the grammar concentrated on rugby and cricket. Now, Harry was soon selected to play for the Northern Ireland schoolboy team, and as he lived just 100 yards from Coleraine FC, he always wanted to play for his hometown club. But it was Linfield Football Club which approached him first, when the legendary Northern Ireland international Joe Bambrick came to his house asking for the young goalkeeper Gregg. Harry was just aged 15. Now, it wasn't long before Coleraine did want to come to sign him for the princely sum of £80. Harry, though, wasn't that popular when in his first game Coleraine lost 5-1. But as a promising youth international a few years later, age 19, Harry got the big move to England. He was signed by Doncaster Rovers, who were managed by Peter Doherty from Northern Ireland. Peter the Great, as Harry always referred to him. And Harry always said that Peter had a huge influence on his career. Now, Harry was paid £6 a week in the summer and £7 a week in the winter. Small fry compared to the hundreds of thousands on offer today. Now, that was in 1952. And 2 years later, he made his first full international cap for Northern Ireland. Northern Ireland would beat Wales. But he had to wait 3 more years until his next cap, and what a memorable cap it was. Harry helped Northern Ireland beat England at Wembley by 3-2, and Harry was hailed the man of the match. Now, around this time, in 1957, he met and then married Mavis Markham. And they would have 2 children, Linda and Karen. And soon, while at Doncaster Rovers, one of the world's biggest football clubs came calling, Manchester United. And Harry often recounted the story of how he was summoned to the club at 2 o'clock, was then bundled into a car with a blanket put over his head and taken to a house. And eventually, when he got to open his eyes, in front of him was the Manchester United manager, Sir Matt Busby. Now, before Matt even had the words out of his mouth, "Do you want to sign for Manchester United?" Harry said yes. He said, "But hold on, son, there will be no signing on fee." Harry still said absolutely yes. Now, his signing was for a world record fee of £23,500. As Harry told me himself, it doesn't sound like much now, and David Beckham spends more on haircuts probably. But Harry was the most expensive goalkeeper on the planet. Harry was so proud that he had signed for United, yes, primarily for his ability, but also, as he later found out, Sir Matt Busby had signed him for his character. Now, as a goalkeeper, Harry was, in his own words, more gung-ho than Rambo. Diving at people's feet, heaven help anyone that got in his way. It was a man's game after all, was one of Harry's favourite expressions. It also helped that Harry had been a boxer in his youth, fighting often in the amateur championships. Now, the headlines in the newspapers at the time asked, "Have Manchester United signed a goalkeeper or an attacking centre-half?" This quite annoyed Harry, so he went to Sir Matt Busby to almost apologise for his style of play. But Sir Matt told Harry, "Don't worry, that's exactly why I signed you." And that pleased Harry a lot. One of his former teammates, Noel Cantwell, once said of Harry, "The opposition were absolutely terrified of him, but I'm not sure if his own defenders weren't more afraid." Now, Harry had fulfilled a dream. He had joined one of the most exciting football teams in the history of British football. He was the final piece of Sir Matt Busby's jigsaw. It was a team dubbed the Busby Babes, and their cavalier style of football grabbed the attention of the public. Now, it wasn't long after Harry signed for United that he and his teammates were playing a European Cup game in the old Yugoslavia. They drew 3-3 to take them to the semi-finals. But it was the journey home on the 6th of February in 1958 that left a scar on the rest of his life. The plane carrying the United team and civilians crashed on takeoff on a snowy runway in Munich. Of the 44 people on board, 23 people died, including 8 of the Manchester United team. But Harry survived. And despite the captain telling him to run away, the plane's about to explode, Harry went back selflessly into the carnage and the horror inside the burning wreckage, and he saved many teammates, including Dennis Viollet, Northern Ireland's Jackie Blanchflower. He saved who he called the boss, Matt Busby, and Sir Bobby Charlton, who would go on to captain England to the 1966 World Cup. Harry also saved a pregnant Yugoslavian woman and her 22-month-old baby daughter. Now, incredibly, less than 2 weeks after the crash, just 13 days, Harry was back playing for Manchester United with just one of his former teammates. It was an FA Cup match. They won, and United would go on to reach the final that year. Now, what happened at Munich was always a mental torment for Harry. He had a constant battle against grief and guilt. But as he told me, it was getting back to football that saved his sanity. He used the game to heal his scars. Later that year, Harry travelled with Northern Ireland to the World Cup in Sweden. Now, he travelled by road, rail and sea, while the rest of his teammates flew. And what a World Cup it was for Northern Ireland. They drew with West Germany and would go on to reach the quarter-finals. An amazing achievement for a wee country like ours. Harry was also voted the best goalkeeper in the world, an accolade he was extremely proud of throughout his life. Now, as Harry continued his career at Manchester United and helped rebuild the club, tragedy was again to befall a few years later. At the age of just 26, his wife Mavis passed away with breast cancer. Now, Munich was extremely harrowing for Harry. But it was Mavis's death that was the core of the pain that he suffered. It was his darkest hour. And obviously this had a huge impact on his life, but again he turned to football. But what saved Harry this time was not football, but a meeting with Carolyn Maunders, a young woman, he said, was so full of life. Now after their first meeting, it took him a few months to actually ask her out on a date, but eventually he did, and later plucked up the courage to ask for her hand in marriage in 1965. Carolyn agreed, and they would stay together for the rest of his life, 55 years, even though, and I know Carolyn won't mind me saying, she said he got more like Victor Meldrew every day. Harry and Carolyn would have 4 children, Julie, Jane, Suzanne and John Henry. Now Carolyn was the gatekeeper. Nobody got an audience with Harry and nobody got to speak to Harry until she vetted them. But when you got the okay, spending time with Harry was always cherished, always eventful and certainly always entertaining. Yes, he could be stubborn, he could be thran, he could be direct. Yes, he could be opinionated and often not very diplomatic when probably saying nothing was the best thing to do. And yes, the conversations were normally on his terms and at his pace. But spending time with Harry was always an education, whether it was about football or whether it was simply about life. Now Harry spent 10 years, almost 10 years at Manchester United, making nearly 250 appearances until the 66-67 season. A young George Best had joined the club and he was always proud to say that he had cleaned the great Harry Gregg's boots. After a brief move to Stoke, Harry retired from playing football in 1967. But he wasn't finished with the game, certainly not. Harry carved a career in coaching. He would go on to manage Shrewsbury Town, Swansea City, Crewe Alexandra, Swindon Town and Carlisle United. He also made a return to Old Trafford as a goalkeeping coach. Eventually, he came back to Northern Ireland, to Portstewart, where he opened the Windsor Hotel. Now back in the early 1990s, a young underage team from Manchester United, including names like Beckham, Butt, Scholes, Neville, Gillespie, Giggs, all came to stay in the Windsor Hotel during the famed Milk Cup youth football tournament. Harry was so proud. And as Manchester United's most successful manager, Sir Alex Ferguson, said this week, I think Harry loved to host the young United team because he was able to recount tales of his own playing career. To show the impression that Harry left, many of those young players, now household names in football, paid tribute on social media this week. Harry Gregg was even trending, something Harry would have known absolutely nothing about. Now, on the 50th anniversary of Munich in 2008, I had the privilege of travelling with Harry as he retraced his footsteps to Belgrade and to Munich. He met some of the Red Star Belgrade players he had faced half a century before. This was a reunion he absolutely loved. He never stopped laughing, especially when the players told him his current value in the transfer market would be about £100 million. Harry also revisited the site of the air crash, meeting people who had been there at the time, doctors and nurses who treated the injured, and he was also reunited with the woman and daughter, Vera and Vesna Lukic, who he pulled from the wreckage. He also met for the first time Zoran, the son who Vera had been pregnant with back in 1958. This was a very emotional reunion for Harry. But he always told me the trip was something he wanted to do, even though he didn't want to admit it. He never escaped the shadow of Munich. I know what happened, I know what I saw, I was there, he said, but I wanted to make the journey to exorcise some ghosts and some guilt I had. Sadly, a short time after that trip, Harry was to suffer personal tragedy again, when his daughter Karen passed away with breast cancer like her mum Mavis. Again, this is a tragedy that took a massive toll on Harry's life. Now, Harry received an MBE, an OBE, an honorary doctorate for his services to football. He had a testimonial to celebrate his time at Manchester United, and he was voted in a World Footballing 11, polling more votes than the legendary Pelé. Harry appreciated all of those accolades, but he was not a fan of awards, or platitudes, medals, or statues. As he said himself, nobody owes me anything, it's always been my way. He decided, as part of his legacy, he would endorse the Harry Gregg Foundation and, in his words, inspire those young people who have dreams. Harry held very simplistic views of football, as I know a lot of you will know, and he felt often that the game had become too commercial and too complicated. He said, "Let the players play and the runners run. Coaches should coach and administrators should minister, and never the two should cross. You can't teach raw talent and ability." Harry also loved spending time with the young people in his own family. His 10 grandchildren and 5 great-grandchildren, I know, will miss spending time with him dearly. Now, Harry Gregg's notoriety because of the Munich air crash came at a price. It cast a shadow over his life that he found difficult to dispel, but he always carried it with grace. Harry was determined that even though Munich shaped his destiny, it would not shape his life. Harry's actions, though, on the runway that fateful day meant that he transcended sporting greatness. He was called the hero of Munich, but he always wanted to be remembered simply as a footballer and a coach of some repute. In his own words, "I'm Harry Gregg from 34 Windsor Avenue in Coleraine, who played football. I was useful on some days and I was rubbish on others. That's how I want to be remembered, not for something that happened on the spur of a moment." Harry Gregg, what an incredible man, what a remarkable life. We will never forget you, and we celebrate your life today. Thank you.
Well said, Stephen. My notes are just not as prim as Stephen's. They're not just typed out the way, and they've got a bit wet as well, so I'll maybe have to wing it, but some things never change. It's very difficult to speak about a man that you had so much respect for, but to take us back just briefly, I was born up the road and grew up in a wee town called Ballymoney. And from I was no age, I was well aware of the fact that there was a man in Coleraine called Harry Gregg, who was making leaps and bounds in the world of football. And I think how we were able to identify him was, along with Harry, was simply because that being from a working class background myself and knowing that he was likewise, he was a great role model for us all. Anybody who was coming from a tough upbringing, he was living proof that you could get to the top. You didn't need wealth. You didn't need a leg up from people in high places. All you needed was a bit of ability, and as he told me many a time, a bit of luck. I didn't have a lot of each, to be honest, but I kept hanging in there and doing my best, and he was that figure that gave, I think, everybody from that walk of life, gave them hope. And we could always look at him. I thought he was the perfect role model. And at times I had lost my father when I was 2. He had suffered a similar fate as well, Harry. I lost my father to a brain hemorrhage when he was 26. So I think as soon as we became friends, that moved on to, I looked upon him as a fatherly figure, and sometimes when I needed guidance, which was quite a lot, I would have went to him and listened to him intently, and sometimes it sounded more like a lecture, to be honest, than advice or guidance. And it's very difficult when you're asked to pick a story of Harry out, particularly in a church. I've been racking my brains for the last 2 weeks, or since he passed away, to what I can say, because he taught me many things, and some of the things I can't say in here, but I think he never courted publicity. That's what I loved about him. All the adulation that people poured upon his shoulders, he took in his stride. In fact, there were times when I thought he felt quite uncomfortable. When I saw Harry most content and at ease with himself was when he was with the family.
even though he was giving them Dixie at the same time. But that's when he was most content, and I loved him for that as well. He never was a person who hung about looking for a free meal ticket. In fact, the very opposite. And there's only one story, and I'm very aware of where we are and who's all around me here. And I've got to choose my words very carefully. But he never always stuck to this. If I asked him for advice or guidance, he never always stuck to what you ask. He sometimes would wander off, and I would never forget one day we were sitting chatting, and he said to me, "Beckett, you go to a lot of those corporate dinners, don't you?" And I said, "I do, Harry, yeah." And he says, they're all the big round tables now, the long square tables have gone. And I said, "Yeah, that's right." Yeah, they sounded like Jackie Fullerton there, that's right. But anyhow, he says, "They're all the big round tables now." And I said, "Yeah." And he says, "How many sits at those tables?" And I said, "Maybe 8 or 10, I'm not honestly sure. I never really counted." And he says, "You take it from me, there's an asshole at every table." I apologise. And I says, I've never really looked at it like that, to be honest. That's never really entered my mind. I've never thought like that. And he says, "You take it from me." And he says, "Can I tell you something? You're not a bit slow, Beckett. You've been round the block a few times. You'll know them when you see them." I'm pretty paranoid now when I sit at every round table. I'm sitting looking round, and this is true story. I honestly do find myself now sitting eyeballing everybody at their table. And his parting statement that day to me was, "And do you see when you go right round them, Beckett, see if you can't find that asshole, then you're the asshole." And that's a true story, and that's, I suppose, what I'm going to, and I apologise to the people around me. I'll probably get barred, but I go to church in Ballymoney anyway, so. But he could be quite outspoken, and we all know that. He just didn't always say what maybe people wanted him to say, and that's another reason why I admired him immensely. He spoke what he felt. He spoke what he thought was right. He didn't say. So many people nowadays, in fact, sport, I think, in many ways has become false. Never when Harry was about, because he told the truth. And it maybe didn't please people, maybe didn't go down the right way, but isn't that the way it should be? Speak your mind and don't say what you think other people would like you to say. And that was Harry. And I just think that's a quality that I love in people, and it's something I think that's become quite a scarce commodity nowadays. But as I was sitting this morning, I was thinking of the legacy that he has left, and Stephen referred to it, and that's the Harry Gregg Foundation, which I know he was so pleased about, and that's his pride and joy. And that is something I know that Andy and Alison and John and all the people are here from the foundation, all volunteers who do a fabulous job. That was set up for people, kids from all backgrounds, cross community. He never had any time for any of that other nonsense. And it's about giving kids a platform, a structured platform, supervised in such a way that the kids could go out and enjoy it. And they wouldn't get their ears bent by coaches at such a young age, trying to force them into systems and tactics. Give them a ball, and let them play, and let them have fun, and let them enjoy